Lohengrin, WWV 75, is a romantic opera in 3 acts composed and written by Richard Wagner, first performed in 1850. The story of the eponymous character is taken from medieval German romance, notably the Parzival of Wolfram von Eschenbach and its sequel, Lohengrin, written by a different author, itself inspired by the epic of Garin le Loherain. It is part of the Knight of the Swan tradition. The opera has proved inspirational towards other works of art. Among those deeply moved by the fairy tale opera was the young King Ludwig II of Bavaria. Der Marschenkönig, as he was dubbed, later built his ideal fairy tale castle and dubbed it New Swanstone, or Neuschwanstein, after the Swan Knight. It was King Ludwig's patronage that later gave Wagner the means and opportunity to compose, build a theatre for, and stage his epic cycle The Ring of the Nibelung. The most popular and recognizable part of the opera is the bridal chorus, better known as Here Comes the Bride, often played as a processional at weddings in the West. Literary background. The literary figure of Lohengrin first appeared as a supporting character in the final chapter of the Middle Age epic poem Parzival of Wolfram von Eschenbach. The Grail Knight Lohengrin, son of the Grail King Parzival, is sent to the Duchess of Brabant to defend her. His protection comes under the condition that she must never ask his name. If she violates this requirement, he will be forced to leave her. Wagner took up these characters and set the forbidden question theme at the core of a story which makes contrasts between the godly and the mundane, and between early Middle Age Christendom and Germanic paganism. Wagner attempted at the same time to weave elements of Greek tragedy into the plot. He wrote the following in Mitteilungen an mein Freund about his Lohengrin plans. Who doesn't know Zeus and Semele? The god is in love with a human woman and approaches her in human form. The lover finds that she cannot recognize the god in this form, and demands that he should make the real sensual form of his being known. Zeus knows that she would be destroyed by the sight of his real self. He suffers in this awareness, suffers knowing that he must fulfill this demand and in doing so ruin the love. He will seal his own doom when the gleam of his godly form destroys his lover. Is the man who craves for God not destroyed? Composition. In composing Lohengrin, Wagner created a new form of opera, the through composed music drama. The composition is not divided into individual numbers, but is played from act to act without any interruption. This style of composition contrasts with that of the conventional number opera, which is divided into arias, recitatives, and choral sections. Lohengrin still contains lengthy performances, for example, Elsa's Alone in Dark Days, and Lohengrin's Grail aria, which harken back to the classical solo aria form. Wagner made extensive use of leitmotifs in his composition. These motifs allowed Wagner to precisely narrate the inner thoughts of the characters on stage, even without speech. Performance history. The first production of Lohengrin was in Weimar, Germany, on the 28th of August 1850 at the Staatskapelle Weimar under the direction of Franz Liszt, a close friend and early supporter of Wagner. Liszt chose the date in honor of Weimar's most famous citizen, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was born on the 28th of August 1749. Despite the inadequacies of the Lied and Karlbeck, it was an immediate popular success. Wagner himself was unable to attend the first performance, having been exiled because of his part in the 1849 May uprising in Dresden, although he conducted various extracts in concert in Zurich, London, Paris and Brussels. It was not until 1861 in Vienna that he was able to attend a full performance. The opera's first performance outside German-speaking lands was in Riga on the 5th of February 1855. The Austrian premiere took place in Vienna at the Theater am Continental on 19 August 1858, with Rosa C. Sillig as Ortrud. The work was produced in Munich for the first time at the National Theatre on 16 June 1867, with Heinrich Vogel in the title role and Matilda Mallinger as Elsa. Mallinger also took the role of Elsa in the work's premiere at the Berlin State Opera on 6 April 1869. Lohengrin's Russian premiere outside Riga took place at the Mariinsky Theatre on 16 October 1868. The Belgian premiere of the opera was given at Le Mans on the 22nd of March 1870 with Etienne Troy as Friedrich of Tell-Ramond and Feliciano Pons as Heinrich Vogler. The United States premiere of Lohengrin took place at the Stadt Theatre at the Bowery in New York City on 3 April 1871. Conducted by Adolf Neuendorf. The cast included Theodor Habelmann as Lohengrin, Louise Garay-Lichtmer as Elsa, Marie Friedrichi as Ortrud, Adolf Franosch as Heinrich and Edward Vieling as Tell-Ramond. The first performance in Italy took place 7 months later at the Teatro Comunale di Bologna on 1 November 1871 in an Italian translation by operatic baritone Salvatore Marchesi. It was notably the first performance of any Wagner opera in Italy. Angelo Mariani conducted the performance, which starred Italo Campanini as Lohengrin, Bianca Bloom as Elsa, Maria Lodeston as Ortrud, Pietro Silenzi as Tell-Ramond, and Giuseppe Galvani as Heinrich Vogler. The performance on 9 November was attended by Giuseppe Verdi, who annotated a copy of the vocal score with his impressions and opinions of Wagner. La Scala produced the opera for the first time on 30 March 1873, with Campanini as Lohengrin, Gabriel Kraus as Elsa, Philippine von Edelsberg as Ortrud, Victor Morel as Friedrich, and Gian Pietro Milesi as Heinrich. The United Kingdom premiere of Lohengrin took place at the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, on 8 May 1875 using the Italian translation by Marchesi. Auguste Farnese conducted the performance, which featured Nesto Niccolini as Lohengrin, Emma Albani as Elsa, Anna D'Angeri as Ortruda, Morel as Friedrich, and Vladislav Seidman as Heinrich. The opera's first performance in Australia took place at the Prince of Wales Theatre in Melbourne on 18 August 1877. The Metropolitan Opera mounted the opera for the first time on 7 November 1883, in Italian, during the company's inaugural season. Campanini portrayed the title role with Christina Nielsen as Elsa, Emmy Furch-Medi as Ortrud, Giuseppe Cashman as Tell-Ramond, Franco Navarra as Heinrich, and Auguste Farnese conducting. Lohengrin was first publicly performed in France at the Eden Theatre in Paris on 30 April 1887 in a French translation by Charles-Louis Etienne. Neuter, conducted by Charles Lamoureux. The performance starred Ernest van Dyck as the title hero, Fides de Vries as Elsa, Martha du Vivier as Ortrud, Emile Blauwert as Tell-Ramond, and Félix Adolphe Couturier as Heinrich. There was, however, an 1881 French performance given as a benefit in the Cercle de la Méditerranée Salon at Nice, organized by Sophie Cruvelli, in which she took the role of Elsa. The opera received its Canadian premiere at the Opera House in Vancouver on 9 February 1891, with Emma Judge as Elsa. The Palais Garnier staged the work for the first time the following 16 September with Van Dyck as Lohengrin, Rose Caron as Elsa, Caroline Fierens-Peters as Ortrud, Maurice Renaud as Tell-Ramond, and Charles Dualier as Heinrich. The first Chicago performance of the opera took place at the Auditorium Building on 9 November 1891. performed in Italian. The production starred John de Ricci as the title hero, Emma Eames as Elsa, and Eduardo Ricci as Heinrich. Roles. Instrumentation. Lohengrin is scored for the following instruments: 3 flutes, 3 oboes, English horn, 3 clarinets in B-flat, ANC, bass clarinet in B-flat and E, 3 bassoons, 4 horns, 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, tuba, timpani, triangle, cymbals, tambourine, harp, first and second violins, violas, violoncellos, and double basses. On stage, 3 flutes, 3 oboes, 3 clarinets in B-flat, ANC, 3 bassoons, 4 horns, 10 trumpets, 3 trombones, timpani in D, triangle, snare drum, organ, harp. Synopsis. Place: Antwerp on the Scheldt. Time: 10th century. Act 1. King Henry the Fowler has arrived in Brabant, where he has assembled the German tribes in order to expel the marauding Hungarians from his dominions. He also needs to settle a dispute involving the disappearance of the child Duke Gottfried of Brabant. The Duke's guardian, Count Friedrich von Telramund, has accused the Duke's sister, Elsa, of murdering her brother in order to become the Duchess of Brabant. He calls upon the king to punish Elsa and to make him, Telramund, the new Duke of Brabant, since he is the next of kin to the late Duke. The king calls for Elsa to answer Telramund's accusation. She enters, surrounded by her attendants. She does not answer to the king's inquiries, only lamenting her brother's fate. The king declares that he cannot resolve the matter and defers it to God's judgment through ordeal by combat. Telramund, a strong and seasoned warrior, agrees enthusiastically. When the king asks Elsa who shall be her champion, Elsa describes a knight she has beheld in her dreams. Twice the herald calls in summons, without response. Elsa sinks to her knees and prays to God to send her champion to her. A boat drawn by a swan appears on the river, and in it stands a knight in shining armor. He disembarks, dismisses the swan, respectfully greets the king, and asks Elsa if she will have him as her champion and marry him. Elsa kneels in front of him and places her honor in his keeping. He asks but one thing in return for his service. She is never to ask him his name or where he has come from. Elsa agrees to this. Telramund's people advise him to withdraw because he cannot prevail against the knight's powers, but he proudly refuses and the combat area is prepared. The company prays to God for victory for the one whose cause is just. Ortrud does not join the prayer, but privately expresses confidence that Telramund will win. The combat commences. The unknown knight defeats Telramund but spares his life. Taking Elsa by the hand, he declares her innocent. The crowd exits, cheering and celebrating. Act 2. Night in the courtyard outside the cathedral. Telramund and Ortrud, banished, listen unhappily to the distant party music. Ortrud reveals that she is a pagan witch and tries to revive Telramund's courage, assuring him that her people are destined to rule the kingdom again. She plots to induce Elsa to violate the mysterious knight's only condition. When Elsa appears on the balcony in the twilight before dawn, she hears Ortrud lamenting and pities her. While Elsa descends to open the castle door, Ortrud prays to her pagan gods, Woden and Frey, for malice, guile, and cunning, in order to deceive Elsa and restore pagan rule to the region. When Elsa appears, Ortrud warns her that since she knows nothing about her rescuer, he could leave her any time, as suddenly as he came. But Elsa is sure of the virtues of her rescuer. The two women enter the castle together. Left alone outside, Friedrich vows to bring about the downfall of the unknown knight who defeated him. The sun rises and the people assemble. The herald announces that Telramund is now outlawed, and that anyone who follows Telramund is an outlaw by the law of the land. In addition, he announces that the king has offered to make the unnamed knight the Duke of Brabant. However, the knight has declined the title, and prefers to be known only as Protector of Brabant. The herald further announces that the knight will lead the people to glorious new conquests, and will celebrate the marriage of him and Elsa. Behind the crowd, 4 noblemen quietly express misgivings to each other because the Protector of Brabant has rescinded the privileges and is calling them to arms. Telramund appears, and, concealing himself from the crowd, draws these 4 knights aside and assures them that he will regain his position and stop the knight by accusing him of sorcery. As Elsa and her attendants are about to enter the church, Ortrud rushes to the front of the procession and challenges Elsa to tell who her husband is, and to explain why anyone should follow him. The ensuing exchange is interrupted by the entrance of the king with the knight. Elsa tells both of them that Ortrud was interrupting the ceremony. The knight tells Ortrud to go back into the crowd, then takes Elsa to the wedding. The king leads at the front of the couple. When they are about to go inside the church, Telramund enters. He pleads to the king that his defeat in combat was invalid because the knight did not give his name, then accuses the knight of sorcery. The knight refuses to reveal his identity and claims that only one person in the world has the right to know his origin, his beloved Elsa, and no other person. Elsa, though visibly shaken and uncertain, assures him of her confidence. King Henry refuses Telramund's questioning of the knight, and the nobles of Brabant and Saxony praise and give respect to the knight. Elsa, not seeing her beloved, falls back to the crowd where Ortrud and Telramund take her and try to intimidate her, but the knight forces both to leave the ceremony. The knight consoles Elsa. Finally, the king, the knight and Elsa, together with the men and women around, go forward. Elsa takes one last look at the banished Ortrud. Then they enter the church. Act 3 Scene 1, The Bridal Chamber. Elsa and her new husband are ushered in with the well-known bridal chorus, and the couple express their love for each other. Ortrud's words, however, are impressed upon Elsa. She laments that her name sounds so sweet in her husband's lips, but she cannot utter his name. Afterwards she asks him to confide on her his name to keep it secret when no one is around, but at all instances he refuses. Finally, despite his warnings, she asks her husband the fatal questions. Before the knight can answer, Telramund and his 4 recruits rush into the room in order to attack him. The knight defeats and kills Telramund. Then, he sorrowfully turns to Elsa and asks her to follow him to the king, to whom he will now reveal his mystery. Scene 2 On the banks of the Scheldt, the troops arrive equipped for war. Telramund's corpse is brought in. Elsa comes forward. Then the knight. He tells the king that Elsa has broken her promise, and he discloses his identity by telling the story of the Holy Grail (Untitled), and reveals himself as Lohengrin, Knight of the Holy Grail and son of King Parzival, sent to protect an unjustly accused woman. The rules of the Holy Grail determine that Knights of the Grail must remain anonymous, retiring from all human sight if their identity is revealed, so the time for his return has come. As he sadly bids farewell to his beloved bride, the Swan reappears. Lohengrin tells Elsa that if she had maintained her oath, she could have recovered her lost brother, and gives her his sword, horn and ring, for he is to become the future leader of Brabant. Then, when Lohengrin tries to get in the boat, Ortrud appears. She tells Elsa that the Swan who drove Lohengrin to the bank was actually Gottfried, Elsa's brother, on whom she put a curse by transforming him into a swan. The people consider Ortrud guilty of witchcraft. Lohengrin prays and the swan turns into another form, a young Gottfried. He elects him as the Duke of Brabant. Ortrud sings as she sees Gottfried and her plans thwarted. A dove descends from heaven and, taking the place of the Swan at the head of the boat, leads Lohengrin to the castle of the Holy Grail. Elsa is stricken with grief and falls to the ground dead. Notable arias and excerpts. Act 1 Prelude Einsam in Trubent Scene Winnicum Kampf für dich Siege. Act 2 Durch dich muss ich verlieren. Ukluften die Main Klagen. Scene 4 Opening Elsa's procession to the cathedral. Act 3 Prelude Bridal Chorus Trulich Gefür. Das Suslied verholt. Hochsvertrauen Entry of King Henry in Fernamland. Mein lieber Swan, O Elsa, nur ein Jahr und deine Zeit. Interpretations. Liszt initially requested Wagner to carefully translate his essay on the opera from French into German, that he might be the principal and long-standing interpreter of the work which, after performing, he regarded as a sublime work from one end to the other. In their article Elsa's Reason, on Beliefs and Motives in Wagner's Lohengrin, Ilias Chrysochoides and Stefan Huck propose what they describe as a complex and psychologically more compelling account. Elsa asks the forbidden question because she needs to confirm Lohengrin's belief in her innocence, a belief that Ortrud successfully erodes in Act 2. This interpretation reveals Elsa as a rational individual, upgrades the dramatic significance of the Act 1 combat scene, and, more broadly, signals a return to a hermeneutics of Wagnerian drama. Recordings